Hey, everybody. It is Thursday. Yes, it is a beautiful Thursday, and you know what that means. It is episode 96 of The Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. I am Allister Carrington, as always, your trusted realtor, alongside our trusted mortgage broker, our trusted mortgage guru, Geoff Lee. Geoff, buddy, you enjoying this beautiful Thursday?
I am. I'm off to Mexico tomorrow, so I'm feeling a little stressed because you're leaving. So
what are you doing in Mexico, Geoff? What's happening? What are you doing in Mexico?
I am going down to an event held through Manulife for some of its brokers here throughout Canada. So there's going to be, I don't even know how many. I'm going to use the word hundreds of brokers down there, sponsored through Manulife for 6 days. So me and my partner, Christina Joe, we're going to be heading on down and enjoying some palmonas, some margaritas, and a little bit of sunshine.
Geoff, I've just come to the realization that we as in the real estate industry need to treat each other better. Look at you guys going to Mexico, schmoozing with each other and having a good time. And us, we sit here schlepping houses, trying to help the public. Life sounds a lot better, Geoff.
Yeah, they're both rewarding.
You betcha. I love helping people.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, let's kick it because we got a lot of stuff to go through today. And let's start it, as always, with the hottest segment in podcast, and that is...
Did you know?
That's right, baby. Did you know? And so today's Did You Know is the April statistics have come out.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, Geoff, and something's happening that you scoffed at me last month for, but it's starting to happen. So let's start off with the Fraser Valley. So the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board recorded 1,118 sales in the month of April. That is up 11% from March and 7% higher than April of last year. The first year-over-year sales increase in more than 12 months. Congratulations, British Columbia real estate. Geoff, his eyes are rolling because he's like, yeah, great. It's up 7% from nothing last year. Geoff, you're so negative.
I'm usually a half full kind of person, but you're taking on that half full role, so now I have to look at it as the half empty.
You're so negative, Geoff. I know. Okay, listen. I know we didn't have the greatest year last year, right? We're coming off of low after low after low. But we'll get into a little bit of why I see things changing. And again, when I say changing, I don't mean where COVID's happening or anything's happening where stuff is going to be flying off the shelves. It's just what we talked about last month. But I'll get back into it. Sorry, Geoff. I'm thinking about I'm usually the half empty guy. I try to be positive. So before we start getting it into like I said, before we start calling it a hot market, new listings were 3,549 in April, which were up 6% month over month. So again, we've got our listings increasing as normal. Total active inventory climbed to 9,816 homes, which was 7% higher than March. And this is the crazy part, 45% above the 10-year seasonal average.
Okay.
That is wild. Our inventory is 45% higher than the 10-year norm. So that's, of course, a massive amount of inventory. So while sales improved slightly, right, supply is still rising faster than there is demand, which is continuing to have our sales to active ratio sitting at 11%, which is a buyer's market. And as we always say, between 12% and 20% is a balanced market. Anything above 20% is seller. Anything below 12 is a buyer's market. But one thing I wanted to state, though, is this is where we were talking about last month, where we had an increase of 0.3% in pricing, and I was championing that last month because I'm now the glass half full guy. This month prices were up 0.1%. So what we agreed upon, and this is really what jokingly, this is where I want to come to, is we're starting to see things possibly stabilize. Now, when we look at the sales perspective, going up, being year over year better, for sure, right? We've had a horrible past couple of years. So anything good is bound to happen. You're bound to have an increase. You're bound to get to better than zero at some point, right? But what it does show is that things are happening. So with prices stabilizing, it's showing that there is becoming more and more comfort, again, where rates are and again, where prices have become. So we're seeing a little bit more stabilization coming through the market.
When I look at this and when I hear it, this is kind of the second month that it's been, I'm using the air quote, better than the year before.
Yeah.
Percentage wise, it's like that. It's like people that sell one house a year and say, I'm up 300%.
Right.
Right. So it's a matter of like when I hear that statistic, because I believe this is the second month in a row that it actually hasn't dropped anymore.
Our pricing hasn't dropped. Our pricing now was up 0.3% last month and was up 0.1% this month. So this is where I was saying prices are stabilizing. Right. But in terms of sales, this is the first time in over 12 months that we've had an increase. And to your point, right? We're doing better than last place. Last year, right? It's not really something to champion, but it's something to take note of.
Yeah, I think it's something, like you said, it's something to take note of because, for a second I thought the sales were the house pricing. And then to me, which is relative to what we're talking about, even with the housing prices, is that's an indicator that this is where they may remain as far as the housing prices go, right?
Right.
I think I need to see at least another month to another 3 months to really say, hey, okay, now we've actually bottomed out, meaning, hey, this is where it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Then I would like to see that same statistic happening with sale prices where we're no longer seeing decreases. We're either seeing a flat or slight increases or big increases, because again, I'm using the air quotes again. What are the big increases and what are we comparing them to?
Yeah.
Because again, to me, if you have a 3-month history, that's an indicator where the market is going, right? You have a 6-month history, to me, that's a really good indicator as far as what it's going to be doing.
Where we are. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe we bottomed out.
Well, it's interesting because I want to get over to Vancouver, like to Vancouver, because in Vancouver it's a little bit different of a story. It's actually it's a muddied water. So in Vancouver, residential sales came in at 2,110. For them, that was down 2.5% to last year. And for Metro Vancouver, that's 22.9% beneath the 10-year average of 2,735. Right? But when you dig into that number, right, detached sales are actually up 14% year over year. So detached sales, they reached 659 units. Whereas apartments, condos, they fell 10.7%, and townhomes fell 2%.
Yeah. So everything fell but detached houses.
but detached housing, right? And it's almost the same thing, to tell you the truth, that we're seeing here in the valley too. Now in the valley, well, I almost in the valley, it's we're seeing a little bit better townhome driven. We were actually up 2% in townhome sales, right? Whereas they were down 2% in Metro Vancouver, but we're seeing quite an active detached home segment on both sides. So the thing is, what's really again dragging down sales, and it really shows you just how much volume the condo market has carried for so long. Because if we've got an active detached market, right? Vancouver up 14% year over year, right? And I know we're coming out of bad years and all that sort of stuff. It still just shows you how much weight that the condo market really did carry and how much that's hurting our current environment.
And again, we've talked about this before. When we talk about detached homes, that typically isn't an investor buyer, right?
Right, right.
And when you take a look at where the heaviness is in condos, again, it's usually investment buying that's I'm not going to say is carrying the load of condo purchases, but it's carrying a good load of it.
Yeah.
And again, what is the difference? We've taken out, we have that foreign buyers tax, we have the foreign buyers ban. Um, again,
Airbnb.
Airbnb. So are we surprised that the condo market is kind of heavy? And again, if I was the housing minister, how am I going to stimulate it, right?
Yeah.
Because even with condos, and I know we're going a little bit maybe off the rabbit trail here, I don't expect those to get any better as far as first-time home buyers purchasing affordable housing, because we're getting so much rental development going on right now through development. And that rental market, and I talked to this young person about it. It's actually cheaper for them to rent and makes actually more sense in their eyes for to rent than it is to buy. And yes, we go through that statistic with CMHC is like, hey, if you own a home at the age of,
Yeah.
what is it, 33 or 44, this is what you're worth, and 60, but they don't seem to care, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's also a little bit of a mind shift as far as what that buyer is today to what that buyer used to be. And we're taking a large part of that condo market uh, purchasers out of the picture because of all the rules and regulations that we've implemented. So again, if we want to see maybe a correction in our housing and getting some activity going, I think we really need to take a look at short-term rentals. And again, keep in mind too, with that short-term rental is if you've had a vacancy, I believe it's of 6% or more for a period of 2 years.
3%.
3% or more, you can
Yeah.
actually apply now to have that short-term ban lifted,
Yeah, I
right?
know. I sent that out to my clientele. I should have used it for a did you know, because that's actually a really interesting thing for people to know.
Yeah,
Kelowna actually is allowed their Airbnbs for this year.
yeah.
I again, that's a great thing. I criticize the government for letting them know too late, so that it's hard for a lot of them to get it done properly. But whatever. I won't nitpick, but it's a good thing for Kelowna.
Yeah, so and it may be a good thing for other municipalities as well, is that if they've had vacancy for 2 years of 3% or higher, they can apply for this short-term rental um, restriction to be lifted.
Yeah.
But again, that's just one thing that has basically stalled that condo market. The other thing is, okay, well, how about this foreign buyers tax?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with the foreign buyers ban? What are we going to do with that? I believe there's someone through the grapevine. I don't know where I heard it from, but there is discussion that that's going to be lifted as well. I don't know if there's a lot of fact to that, or
The
if I
buyer's
just heard
ban?
that, if I just heard that whispering, or maybe I was self-willing it to myself to hear it. Um, but again, if we want our condo market to start to move, It's not, and again, we're seeing it. It's not by making it more affordable to the first-time home buyer because they're not buying,
Right. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And a lot of these developers now are shifting their attention not from the pre-sale to home like first-time home buyers or home or owner occupieds.
Yeah.
They're shifting their attention now to building rental purpose developments because there's no sales.
Yeah.
So again, you add that into the mix. How are these empty units going to sell when there's no interest from buyers right now, right? In the condo market, we're seeing that.
Yeah.
And then again, the shift is going to go into rental. So is somebody like me, are you going to buy it as an investment, Alistair, when we're going to be underwater per month possibly? But
Say a condo?
now all of a sudden we're competing against developments that are purely rental purpose.
Yeah.
And even if you talk to a lot of project managers, they're even having problems filling these units up. So again, how are we going to get this condo market to move again?
Yeah. And it's said right there. It lies a lot in the Airbnb and in the short term rentals. And again, I haven't been the one that's been around to promote Ebby. That's not that I will not promote that one. I don't agree with any decision he's made. He's literally cratered the real estate market.
I think, and again, we're not lifting the Airbnb. People are applying
Right.
for the regulation to be lifted if they've had vacancy
For
3% or higher for 2 years.
for
So
2 years. Yeah.
they're not lifting anything. Even the municipalities have to apply for it. They're just allowing it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, which actually this is transitioning nicely into what I want to talk about turning renters into buyers,
Let's do it. Let's do
right?
it.
And let's kind of just toe that same line. Like why, like renters who could buy but they haven't. Why are they doing that? Because you always hear the conversations like, "Oh, I would love to buy something someday. I just don't think I'm ready yet. Prices are too crazy right now." But the reality of it is, and again, I feel like a broken record, is that we are in the second lowest rate environment that we've seen. So you should be ready, right? Prices, they're just too crazy right now. We're in the second softest market, I believe what you've said, since 1980, right?
Yep.
So again, I go back to why renters aren't buying. It's more of the fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times too, Alistair, the reality of it is that a lot of renters they just don't believe that they're qualified. Like for whatever reason, it's in their head that they're not able to qualify and buy a home,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So again, it goes back down to the education. I have a developer. I saw something online for studios going for $199,000, right? In Abbotsford, 372 square foot studios. Sure, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but again, if you are a renter
Yeah.
and you're purchasing something for 200,000 and you only got to put $10,000 down, 5%,
Mhm.
right? And your income, again, remember, on every $21,000 you earn, it means you can borrow 100. So
Right.
in theory, that's someone that's earning $45,000 a year-ish.
Yeah.
And if they don't have any debt, like what is holding that person from purchasing that really affordable unit? And I believe once you kind of do what that mortgage payment looks like, it's going to be much cheaper than what rent's going to be.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And I know I've read like I read something about 3 weeks ago, again, researching for Did You Know? Just then they were talking about how far rents are down. I think rents are the lowest they've been in the past 5 years, I want to say, but still at that by that same token, we've also a lot of the pricing of homes have rolled back almost just as far. And to your
Yeah.
point, where our rates are and where everything is, it should really be almost apples to apples still. It should still be from never mind your future growth and all of that, your future net worth and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just you're right now and you're owning something. I mean, it should be a no-brainer to still buy. I know CMHC, they did a survey, and they were surveying first time buyers, and a lot of them were saying that they had the money, but they were afraid to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very telling and very scary because that means that they have zero confidence in the professionals out there.
Well, and to your point, it's the psychology of people,
Yeah.
right? And to me, this is why, again, there is a little bit of a stale in the market is because people are uncertain. They're fearful of making a mistake. They're fearful about the uncertainty about the market because for the last 3 years, uh, we that's all we've been talking about is the correction of real estate.
Yeah.
To be honest, they're lacking a lot of information, right? A lot of renters who are qualified are not qualified. And that mindset has to kind of shift and that mindset has to change. And us as the professionals have to put that education out there as far as like, hey, this is what it looks like. This is and to your point, nobody really cares about net worth when they're young because they don't even think about it. It's when you're old and when you're looking back at your life and saying, well, I should have done this and I should have done that,
Right.
right? And they're also fearful because they're hearing past experiences or stories from others.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I've said this actually a lot of times this week, Alistair, as a renter or as anybody of an opinion, you can give the reasons why you want to rent. You can give the reasons why you shouldn't buy, and you can give the reasons as far as why you should or you shouldn't. And because we are in such a open society now, you can find somebody that's going to agree with your opinion,
Yeah.
right? And I believe because of that, it leads to a lot of confusion. And because again, every opinion that somebody has, be it right or be it wrong, or what I've said, extreme left, extreme right, or right down the middle, no matter what that opinion is. So again, if that opinion is renting versus buying, you're always going to find somebody that's going to agree with you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And to me, that leads a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So
And to your point too, also, we live in an era of fake news, whichever side you live on, wherever you live on, it's everybody saying, telling you every time you're told something, no, that's fake news. The truth is this. So there's just no trust in advice because we've created such a culture where it's, who do you
yeah.
trust?
Well, and they also say too, is like when people have an opinion. I once talked to a counselor, and it's going to lead into what I want to talk about. And I was saying to him, I'm like, you've been doing this for years. Like you must hear every problem like that under the sun.
Yeah.
I said, as a counselor, like don't can't you just tell people like you've seen it, you've heard it, this is what you need to do? And this is what he said to me is like, like as a counselor, based on their governing body, you're not able to tell people what to do. And again, I'm paraphrasing. So anybody that's in counseling, I'm just paraphrasing. Do not hold me to task here. But the messaging that I got was, we don't want to tell people what to do because if it doesn't work out, then it was their idea and not theirs, right?
Yeah.
Or if there could be a liability issue. You told me to do this and it went completely sideways and now I'm going to sue you. And what I said to him is like, well, what happens like when somebody is sharing their problems with you and they're completely going down the wrong road? Like, what do you do? And he says, you know what? We keep on asking questions. So the more you ask the questions, you eventually get them down to the road you want them to go down.
Right.
And this leads to, again, when renters are not into buying or not wanting to buy, is asking those questions as far as why, like leading it with the curiosity, like what's holding you back, right? Explain to me and really getting them onto the road as of home ownership, if it makes sense. Now, for some, it doesn't make sense. For some, they can't actually even do it. But again, somebody that's 56 years old, turning 56 years old, if I was to turn my life back 30 years, knowing what I know now, I would do a lot things different.
Mhm.
Just like Back to the Future when Marty dropped that sport almanac and Bart, was it Bart?
Biff, Biff,
Biff,
Biff.
Biff, found that it was 1950, whatever it was, in 2025, he was like the Elon Musk kind of
Yep.
idea. But what you know, like through your wisdom and what you can share that with people, especially that people that are renting at a young age, and if you can share with them as far as okay, like what's holding you back, right?
Mhm.
Like tell me what really is your hesitation, and then basically sharing them your wisdom, and hopefully you build their trust um, based on your experience and based on who you are as a person as well, that they're going to say, you know what, that does make sense. This is, and again, this is where I'm talking about as people in our profession, especially on the real estate side,
Yeah.
else you probably see this all the time,
Yeah.
as far as like, oh, I'm just not ready, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait for whatever.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times I'm sure, and I say this with my own kids sometimes when they share with me, I'm like, what planet are you on, number one, right? Number two, like if you would just listen to me, your life is going to be that much better.
Yeah.
But again, when they're not your kids and you don't have that relationship, you have to basically listen and ask those appropriate questions to say, okay, well, why? What is holding you back? And giving them educational based information
Yeah.
that's factual, right?
Yep.
That you can give them to say, hey, rethink it like this.
And that's what I keep saying, like, is making sure when we talk about power teams and all of that sort of stuff, you need to sort of make sure that the people that you're dealing with are talking to you that way, if
Yeah,
that makes any sense. So when you sit down with them, right, actually sit there and say, what are these people asking me? How are they
yeah,
asking me?
yeah,
Are they just saying, so who's telling you can't buy a home? Oh, I don't think I can. And then if they turn around and say, okay,
yeah,
and then don't offer you anything after that, you're
yeah,
sitting around with the wrong people. So really, it's when really listen to the questions that are being asked of you,
yeah.
right?
And again, like you have to, again, in your profession, you can't pressure anybody. You have to
No,
offer your insight, right?
yeah,
And you can't rush people either.
no,
Because again, when you rush people, they don't feel confident in their decisions. And to your point, you have to listen to them. But then this is also the time where you have to basically give your wisdom or your opinion. And then it's up to them to basically either ask more questions, up to us to explain it better. And then at the end of the day, that person who is renting has to opt in into saying, you know what? Yes, what I'm hearing, what I've been listening to, what I've now I'm comfortable taking it to the next step, right?
yeah, yeah. And I think like that is what we in your profession, especially in the real estate profession, that's what our job is to do consistently, is we are there to educate. And I believe we should be educating whether you're downsizing, because that's a big change in your life, and you might not know how to do that, right? Whether you're taking that first step, that next step from your condo to your townhome or townhome to your home, that's a pretty big step because it's a
Yeah,
new set of purchases, it's a new set of life. But
yeah,
especially when you're a first time buyer, when you're a renter, it's helping those people that have never owned something, that are coming to the realization, to the grips that they're going to be spending probably the most money, maybe the most money they could ever imagine spending in their life till they buy a next second home. But at that time, they're spending the most money they could ever imagine spending. It is our job to educate them on how to do it properly. Now, if they don't want to take our advice, that's, you can't make them take it. But
well,
it's our job
yes.
to listen to them.
And
And
what I like to do, Alistair, is show them the numbers, right?
oh, for sure.
Um, when we're doing pre-approvals, for example, I always like to show them the numbers as far as what those numbers look like if you were to purchase something, whatever that purchase may be.
Yeah.
to what your current rental position is.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I do. That's my
And
favorite one.
once you show them the numbers and you compare the rent versus the ownership, even if it's the same, then you transition into the conversation of about an appreciating asset, right?
Right. Yeah.
And even in a lot of times, and many times, in many situations, your mortgage is actually a lower payment than what the rent is,
Yep.
right? So again, I find if you show the numbers and you compare what ownership looks like, even a rent, even on a month-to-month basis, but then you transition it into an appreciating asset basis, it makes it very real and tangible for that person to make an educated decision on how to move forward, right?
100%. That's my favorite one to sit and do when I do a discovery call. Well, not discovery, with sit down over coffee with a new client and their first time buyers, doing that comparison. And then that's when you can put down that, what your net worth would be, right?
Yeah.
What their net worth is going to be. And it's impactful more at that point because they're seeing it in written form
Yeah.
as opposed to listening to us tell them over a phone or such.
And also when you break it into those into that written form, when you break it into steps,
Yeah.
right? It just makes it that much easier for people to digest, right?
Yeah.
When you break it into like a clear timeline, it
Yes.
makes it easier for people to think, hey, like, yes, I can actually do that.
Yeah.
Because I remember working, I'm even working with some first-time home buyers now. It is a very overwhelming process, right?
Yeah.
And if you haven't done it, um, or if you're about to do it, if you don't know the steps and if you don't know the breakdown of it, it does feel overwhelming. It feels like a huge, anxious feeling, like just like me going to Mexico tomorrow. Like I have so much stuff that I need to do before I go. I'm anxious and I don't even know where to start because
Yeah.
there's so much, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you break it into little steps,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this first. Then
Yeah.
I'm going to do that second. Then I'm going to do this third. And then all of a sudden, everything becomes achievable and obtainable. And I'm using, this as an example, but when it comes to, a renter, well, I don't even know if I can buy something. Well, the first thing then is let's see if you can,
Hmm.
right? Number one.
That's it.
Yeah. The next thing is well, I don't have enough. I can, but I don't have enough of a down payment. Or I'm thinking that I need a heck of a lot more than what I actually do. Okay, well, let's figure out how you can save up that down payment by some of the tools that, that is out there. First time home buyer savings account, RRSPs, just basic saving 10% of your paycheck each and every month, right? Oh, I have debt. So again, when we break it into steps, it's just like, oh, okay. And you give yourself the timeline. It's like, yes, I can do this. And I'll tell you one thing. Anybody that I've seen that has been a renter that has purchased something and held that property for a long period of time, they have never regretted it,
Not one.
right?
Yeah.
I have seen regret when people will buy something and flip it because it becomes an emotional kind of decision, or there's a life event and there's a money loss. I've seen that
Yeah.
as far as they regret it. But again, the whole idea about property is just like a stock portfolio, is once you have it, is not to let it go in the near future. It's to hold on to it and let it grow, right? So
Yeah.
again, playing that long game
Yeah.
is understanding the longer that you own property, the higher the value it's going to be, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, on our side too, is that a lot of times people they just need to think about it. So, for me, it's really important to always stay in touch, right?
Yeah.
It's always important to give education along the way.
Yeah.
And it's always important that you become their go-to. We become their go-to. So when they're ready to move forward. There's something never so frustrating to me as when you've put a lot of energy, or not energy, you're introduced to somebody that's a renter, but you don't stay in touch. You don't really make yourself top of mind. And then you bump into them and you're like, oh, how's life going? It's like, oh, yeah, I bought a house 3 years ago. It's like, okay, I'm happy that you bought a house. But again, it's on us to make sure that we're staying in touch with them and we're educating them along the way, and that we become, their go-to with any questions or anything that they may have along their journey.
Well, that's the thing, and staying in touch again is so important because even after you leave talking to them that very first time you meet, right? If you don't keep in touch, a few months later, they could meet somebody again that gives them some poor information, right? Gives them, that changes their mind. They could listen to a bad podcast that gives them all the wrong information and sends them completely down backwards the other way, right? And you don't have the chance to again help them, right? And correct them and correct again, give them better information to make better choices.
Well, and back to the bad podcast comment. Might not be a bad podcast, but it might be the podcast that someone listens to because they want they want their opinion to be verified,
True. Yeah,
right?
true. Exactly. Yeah.
So again, but sometimes it's poor information because
Yeah.
you have a poor opinion.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so it's so important to make sure that that the person that you trust is staying in touch with you, and vice versa. I always say it's a two-way street, right? So
Yeah.
you got to stay in touch with them, and always remember that if you have a question, you should feel as though you should contact that trusted professional that you have. You should feel free to give them a call to ask them that question, and not made to be felt stupid or silly for asking any question that you might have, because this again, if you're a first time buyer, even for a second time buyer, right? This is the one of the biggest purchases you're ever going to make in your life. It's a lot of money to spend. Um, Paying somebody's mortgage for your entire life is not the greatest decision. It's not the greatest thing to do. So,
When you're a renter.
when you're a renter, that's what I mean. When you're a renter, paying somebody's mortgage is not the greatest thing to do. So, learning to get out of that rental aspect and into home ownership and increasing your net worth and all of that sort of stuff, it's super important to do. So make sure you have the right team behind you that's doing all of this stuff that we said, staying in touch with you, educating you, always being available for you for your questions. Maybe not right when you want the answer, but at least within 24 hours.
Well, and here's my thing that I want to challenge all renters out there. Anybody that's a renter that possibly may even think about wanting to purchase something, see if you can be qualified,
Yeah.
because your insecurity or the unsureness, is that a word? Your uncertainty,
Yeah.
your uncertainty may not be, right? You may be able to do what you want to do, but you're just not sure if you can do it,
Yeah.
right? And start to ask questions. Surround yourself with wisdom, somebody that is a homeowner, somebody that can walk you through this. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a realtor or a mortgage broker or anybody on your power team. It could be your grandfather that has all the wisdom in the world, right? That understands what home ownership can do, understands the difference between being a renter and being a property owner. Ask yourself what's holding you back, right? And surround somebody like a mentor that you actually trust, and be open to hear things that you don't want to hear, right? Don't look for the thing that you want to hear, because you'll find that very easily. But at the end of the day, find somebody that's going to give you insight. It does not have to be a rush. At the end of the day, you have to make the decision to become a homeowner. But I can tell you of somebody that has been on this world, this planet for 56 years and been somewhat of a productive adult since the age of 21. If I could turn myself back and even just tell anybody one thing, is it better to be a renter versus a homeowner? I would say without a doubt, owning a home is your best investment of your life. So get yourself there.
100%. Well said, my friend. Well said, my friend. Well, that's all I had. You got anything more? That was good, man.
That's it. I'm off to Mexico.
Well, there you go. All right, people. Well, thank you so much for listening to us. That was, again, a whole lot of great information for any of you that are renting. Please reach out, give Geoff a call, give myself a call, ask your Uncle Ted what mortgage broker he might know that he trusts or realtor that he trusts. Just start asking the questions. Start paying attention for everybody else listening. Start paying attention to the market. I'm not saying it's going crazy. Don't know if it's seasonal, but it has been busier. So get out there. If you're thinking about making a move, now's the time. Rates are great, and so is the inventory. But most importantly, get out this weekend and just enjoy the weather, because again, it's going to be nice. It's not going to be as nice as Mexico probably, where Geoff's going to be, but we can enjoy our BC Mexico, which is still supposed to be plus 22. Whew. With that being said, stay empowered, stay informed, and Geoff,
Stay